Good evening and welcome to Esports African News.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
How's been your day? I mean, it's been miserable-ish today out here in the northeast of England. Where are you and where are you based?
I'm in Rome at the moment, and it is also miserable today.
Oh, right. Then, we've got the same kind of weather today.
Yeah,
So,
I came out here thinking I was gonna get sun, but
yeah, I
it's like
thought when you said Rome, I was going to smile. I thought you were going to get some sunshine there.
yeah, it's like I imported the weather along with me here.
I beg you. I beg you. I beg you. Right. Can you have us introduce yourself first? Tell us who you are, because I know you, but tell us who you are, what you've been doing, and please specify that you are a parent of an esports, an athlete, a driver. Give us the full details of you, the daddy.
All right. So my name is Emeka Chikure. I'm from Nigeria, but I live in Ireland slash across Europe. Um, I'm a dad of three teenagers.
Teenagers, yeah.
Yeah, and each one represents a different cardinal point of interest.
Wow.
That challenges me each day. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're talking about my first son, who is a sim racer.
Yeah.
Essentially, he drives virtually, which is not strictly correct anymore because he's also driven a real car, a
Yeah.
real Formula 4 car in France last summer. But his primary discipline is sim racing, which is an esports category. Yeah, and over the past, I suppose all his life we've been kind of on this journey, but more correctly or specifically over the last 9 to 10 years, we've been on the sim racing journey specifically. That was when he got his first sim rig. And what started out as let's give you this thing to to sort of satisfy your interest, obsession, not interest, obsession with cars and racing cars, has matured into full bloom where he's now stepping into real cars and racing them in real life races as well.
Well, that's interesting because I mean, I've seen videos of him, and I think especially was it last year that you were in
France.
international race. I was hoping I could make it, but obviously couldn't make it. But tell us a bit about that, and then we'll come back to the main course of it because he raced in a major event, and he was featured as there are a lot of things about his accolades, either the youngest or the only black. There were a few accolades, if you could mention that to us.
I don't know if it was the one last year because the one last year in France was, I mean, he wasn't the only black kid. There were two black kids there. He was one of them. He wasn't the youngest either.
Was it?
And he wasn't the only person going from sim to real. There were two of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but of the two that went from sim to real, he was the one that demonstrated the most progression from sim to real.
Wow.
Because it looks, I mean, it's like, you drive these things and you think it's easy to just translate from driving, from driving on a sim rig to driving in a real car.
Life. Yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, for instance, if you've ever tried to, if you remember when you're learning to drive a car, you probably, manual cars, not automatic cars, you probably don't translate the clutch properly.
Yeah.
And you kill kill the engine, or
Yeah.
the car jerks. That actually was happening with him because this is not a digital thing. This is a mechanical device. So transitioning from a standstill to moving it actually smoothly, as you see them doing Formula One, that's a skill. That's not easy,
Wow.
So that was a challenge he was having. But the biggest challenge really, and this is, it wasn't me doing it, it was his experience was was the braking. So braking a Formula car, there's no brake assist. When you're driving a car, you have brake assist. You touch the brake a little, the car stops. Literally, you're using your muscle to stop the car. That's what Formula driving is. So literally, you smash your feet into the brakes.
Wow.
And you're trying to bring this car that is going at 200 kilometers plus an hour to a literal stand stop. By the end of that week, actually, one of the younger drivers, I think he was 14, he had an ankle injury from braking. Yeah.
Wow.
So people say motorsports guys just sit in a chair and turn a wheel. It ain't that. These guys are literally pounding concrete at every turn, at every corner. It's incredible. It's an incredible athletic feat, and doing that at mind-boggling speed, like it's incredible. So yeah, I doff my hat to all the guys that who this is what they want to do. But yeah, so for him going from the comfort of his home on a sim rig and the computer sort of managing a lot of those things to actually doing it in a real car, that was and the I think he was only off from the guys that have been racing in real cars. It was off them by less than 2 seconds.
Wow. I mean, and every second counts. That's where we're coming from.
I mean, you don't even measure in seconds; you measure in milliseconds. It's incredible. Yeah. Right. So for him to be that close to them, and when he started at the week, he was off them by about 9 seconds. By the end of the 5th day, he was off by less than 2 seconds. So he had closed the gap. Yeah. So he was literally in the close to the guys who had been racing real cars for life. I mean, they're all young kids, but at least they've been in real cars for at least 6-7 years at that point. So it was a real deal for him. I mean, it validated all he had been doing on the sim rig at home. It validated that he was good at this. It validated that he's competitive. It validated that his learning curve is quick. So on all fronts, it marks him out as an elite destined racer for sure. This is not. He's not just playing along. He's not just he is serious. He's committed. He is delivering the goods. He was the only one that received a special mention by the coach, and this guy was a Formula 1 driver, so it's not a my guy, That's so good. And he got real commendation from the guy, because the guy also said, he thought from the start, oh, these sim racers,
yeah,
but by the end of the week, and the gap that my son had made, he was super impressed with him.
No, that's great. That's really great. I know we talk about your son come to, but the main reason is to look at personalities like yourself, parents, and possibly siblings, because you've got experience with your other kids to tell us. It's trying to understand the role, or figure out the role that you as a parent have played in your son's life, and how other parents can learn from you or spotlight that kind of effort. Because it's nice to see the kids do something they like, but nobody talks about the sacrifice, the effort, the additional pressure of maintaining a working, sometimes maintaining a working life, and trying to run the hope of another person, concurrently. And that is where we're coming from. So for me, I'm asking you, from your experience, this journey, is it 6 or 9 years between that gap? How has that been for you?
It's I mean, it's not an easy path to take. I have a friend who says, that I have sacrificed a lot, and I sacrifice a lot. I actually don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as I mean, if I use the word duty, it almost sounds like it's joyless. It's not joyless for me. It is full of joy. I see myself that this is the role of a parent. my view is that we brought these lives into the world. And yes, to a large degree, a lot of parents do well in feeding their kids and clothing their kids. But ultimately, my perspective on life is that they have dreams, they have desires, they have ambitions, and when they are young, the only people they tell these things are us. They come to us and say, "Hey, Daddy, I like this. Daddy, I want to do this." And this is them getting acquainted with the world, with all the wonder in their eyes, with all the excitement. And my view is that it is our job to listen carefully to those things. Some of them are frivolous, yes. There's no doubt about that. But when a kid comes back to something over and over and over and over again, when you see their eyes light up, when you see their bodies just come to attention when they're doing a particular thing over time, and this wasn't something that just happened over a weekend. We've seen this over his life. When you see that happening, you cannot but, in my view, as a parent, realize that this is a gift that this child came into the world with. And there's nobody better placed. Actually, there's nobody that has a duty, I will use the term, to take that gifting and work with the kid to shape the talent. Talent does not automatically catapult anybody to anything. It's talent that is molded, that is invested in, that is nurtured, that is, if you like, you sacrifice to point to that talent. That's the partnership that exists, in my view, between a parent and a child. Is the child comes with the gifting, the talent, the desire, the passion. The parents come with more of the experience, the resources, the professional capacity to help them, direct this in a certain way. So that partnership is what we're on. It's not easy. I mean, I wrote on LinkedIn about I barely spend time on the couch watching football anymore. I've had to largely give up watching football, to concentrate on this.
Yeah.
If you want to call that a sacrifice, you call it, but for me, it's stepping into my role. That's where I see it.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I mean, the few things you mentioned there about the kids themselves coming up with their interest consistently and how you follow through, how you read between the lines, doing that. But before I come to that, I mean, we are Esports Africa News, and obviously we focus a lot on the African region or Africans in the diaspora, which we both are in doing that. We were brought up, I mean, we've spoken before, and we were brought up from the African background, with proper African parents, not the Western African parents. And I want to ask, in African households, esports gaming is still seen differently. How did you know, how did you manage to balance that idea of seeing your kid on tablet consoles, making it into the professional arena, as well as combining the school? African parents are into schooling massively, combining schooling. How did you manage to balance that?
So it's not just African parents that have an issue with gaming. I think the middle class as a whole, maybe middle upper class, maybe parents also have an issue with gaming. Yeah. They feel it's a waste of time. If you go back deep into our cultures, I mean, we have games like, I don't know what it's called in various spaces. There's a particular one we call Ncho, which is like a board game that has, I think, 12 holes and then 4 pebbles in each hole, and you kind of, traverse across that.
Yeah. Owari in Ghana.
Yeah,
Owari.
yeah,
It goes round like that. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, if you go to a traditional African family, I don't think they see that with any suspicion.
No.
But that's a game.
Yeah.
Now, you would argue, well, maybe it's not, it doesn't have the element of digital games that can become addictive, which is partly part of the problem. A kid spends so much time, and also, or it's probably a social game. If you're gaming on the computer, they don't necessarily sit as social. It's just a kid playing away. There are issues around addictiveness and all of that. I get it, but I actually brought my kids up with gaming as their primary educational pathway, not schooling. And let me explain. And digital games, to be specific. So when my kids, this is probably going to contradict a lot of parenting advice, but when my kids were pretty young, very young, I mean, in Australia today, they probably would not. I'll not get away with this, but that's my view. That's Australia's view. I bought them all Kindle Fires. Okay? And the beauty about Kindle Fires, I don't know if it's still the same then, was that the kids only access games that I load onto it. Okay, so when I got them the Kindle Fire, the first game I put on it was Angry Birds.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I was mad into Angry Birds. I loaded it for the kids. Now, what is Angry Birds? I will tell you that Angry Birds is a physics lesson. But the kids don't know it's a physics lesson. What are you doing? You're selecting between a number of birds based on their size. Then you put them on a catapult and you select the angle at which to shoot the birds at. And you also select the force by how much you pull back on. And you're aiming at a target over a distance. So you're doing an arc to hit the target. And you select the bird based on the structure you're aiming to destroy. And all of that, and all of that. That is projectiles in physics. The kids don't know anything about physics. They don't know anything about projectiles. But intuitively, they are learning those things. Okay? Now, if you project that forward to sim racing, for argument's sake, racing is all about physics. It's all about angles. It's all about cornering. It's all about, all of this. So, I actually did not just give my kids games. I selected games based on what I believed was intuitive educational value, but that were critically, they were games, from the start. So Angry Birds was the big one they played growing up. Then they played Bad Piggies, which was the next iteration from the Rovio guys that developed Angry Birds, because that was about building mechanical vehicles to transport various items over a distance. So these are what my kids were spending forever on playing. And I had no issues with that, because they weren't playing just adrenaline fueled games that just spike adrenaline and spews dopamine into their systems. And I never put a time limit on them. My kids will actually stop. You know why? Because Angry Birds actually tasks your brain, they get tired. So there's a cognitive load it places on them that they actually get tired, and they drop those devices themselves and choose to go and do something else less cognitively tasking.
Okay.
So when we talk, if you talk about how we brought the kids up with gaming, it wasn't a case of let them just game. We curated the games that they had access to. We put them on a device that they could only access what we put on it, the Kindle Fire, so they couldn't access anything else. And because those games were, like I said, cognitively tasking, they themselves will mentally get tired and then drop the games to go do something else. So that's actually my view on gaming. I actually prioritize it over, if you like, what you might call schooling. In terms of balancing it, that's my perspective. My wife is more from a traditional perspective. So she's the one that ensured that they did schooling. Yeah, so it's both parents kind of kind of pushing along the path that they valued, but that sort of helped the kids balance those two.
Yes. No, thanks for that. I use African because obviously we focus from the African region. I do understand parents everywhere have concerns at different levels to do that. But I was just trying to zone in into our region and try to get that. But again, as an African parent or with this background, or even as a parent, we like to be in control of what the kids do. We try to determine their future. We try to give them a manuscript because you say if you go to school from primary to junior high, from junior high to senior high to college, and you do your science and maths and your physics, and you're going to become a doctor, you become a lawyer, an accountant. How then do we balance these standard message with the now growing dynamic, diverse arena of job employment or even earnings? Because most people, or as we read or we've been told, that a lot of people in this creative, non-regular, non-structured industries are actually making a better living or making a better life than people who have come from the structured, uh, templated, industries.
So it's all about understanding what is happening in the world. So when I was growing up, right, we ate cornflakes, right? And then I got to the West, and you go into any grocery store, there's cornflakes, there's Rice Krispies, there's
Confusion.
yeah, I mean there's
Too
probably
many options.
200 different brands of breakfast cereal.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were growing up, we just said we ate cornflakes. We never said we ate cereal. We ate cornflakes.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I was concerned, cornflakes was cereal. Growing up, we drank Coke. And then you come out, there's Pepsi, there's Dr. Pepper, there's, we didn't say we drank cola. We said we drank Coke, Coca-Cola. There was a chocolate beverage I drank growing up, was Milo. So for us, we drank Milo.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
But it wasn't a chocolate beverage, So the era we grew up in, we had limited options, right? And the reality was, the perspective that I propound today probably would not have applied to my time growing up. Growing up, yeah, you probably should go down the path of being a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer to get anywhere in life, because the prescribed paths to progressing were the laid down tracks. If I move that analogy a little bit to transportation, back then we were essentially train carriages. Train carriages can only run where there's rail. And in our time, the rails were laid down, medicine, engineering, etc. Our kids are more like airplanes. Actually, not just airplanes, flying objects, because they're drones. They don't even need a flight path dictated by traffic control. A kid can go to the store, buy a drone, and fly to wherever he likes. It doesn't need to ask permission. Can I fly here? No. So long as you stay away from airports, restricted zones, you can do anything you like. that's the age that our kids, are in. That's there are multiple pathways to succeed. And they're not constrained by running this carriage or this rail that was laid down, and that's how you get from point A to point B. So if parents don't understand that, then there's nothing anyone can do, in my view. And it gets even worse in this age of AI, because a lot of those prescribed parts are standardized pathways that AI can do, which means that putting kids down those pathways, I mean, like I take the tram in most cities I go into. There's no driver up there. It's a standardized part that's it does. But I would argue that drones are probably still flown by humans. Even the drones that you watch these movies that the US flies drones, largely because it's not a standard thing. So a lot of the standardized career paths that we all know growing up are so standardized that AI can deal with them. But career paths that are non-standardized, a lot of what you find in the creator economy, AI cannot, in my view, replace them, because they're not standardized. They're not, they still stem from the core human wells of creativity and human experience. And at the core of every human, Picasso said it, that every child is an artist. The challenge is remaining an artist as you grow up. At the core, we have a desire to create, to bring something into the world, and I think it behooves us as parents to identify what that creative bent is in our kid, and again, like I said, take the experience that we have of life and try to help direct that thing towards a productive outcome. But if we do what was done to us, I slam down those things and just say force the kids down a particular path, there are many things wrong with it, in my views. For instance, if out in the West, educating kids in university is so expensive now. To force someone to take on debt to do something that they have no passion, no interest for, my God, like, how does that guarantee any success? They come out with debt. A lot of kids don't even finish school, so they still have the debt. They don't have the credential. They don't have the skills. Like, that's them stuffed for life.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, but if they go down a path that they have an interest in, even if they don't credential, that interest will carry them forward. So, I actually think pushing kids down the traditional path, if they have absolutely no interest in it, is the more. It's not just me. It's bearing out. There's a lot of evidence now of lots of people with college debt that they did not finish because they couldn't sustain it. So the idea that those parts are safer is actually wrong. It's not borne out by evidence anymore. The data is showing that it's actually becoming traps for people.
Yeah. So, thanks for that. So parents like yourself, and in your article on LinkedIn, you mentioned Judy, you mentioned now I can't remember some of the names immediately. You can help me with that. But
Richard Williams.
Yes, I'm looking at you and obviously Judy and this Arsenal player, Bakayo Saka's mom, was Arsenal's player, um, young Arsenal player. I can't remember their names on top of my head, but what I'm trying to get at is how do you special parents get around with so much energy, strength? Because we know how difficult it is. I mean, there have been dark nights. How do you manage to maintain that composure, that strength? Not over weeks, talking about years, from maybe 7 to like 15, 18. How do you manage? What is your strength? What's kept you going? What can we learn from you?
Um, I mean,
even when it's raining, how do you wake up?
So, so there's this sort of saying that I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it talks about those who plant seeds, knowing that they will
Yeah,
not sit under the
and then
shade of
yeah, I've
the
seen it
tree.
somewhere before. Yeah.
Um, I suppose because I have a long-term mindset, um, I I can see. I believe in process,
Mm,
and I believe that if you execute a process, all things being equal, the outcome scientifically is assured.
mm,
Um, and and the best example of that is if you stick a seed in the ground, so long as the ground is tilled properly, it has enough nutrients, there is water, rain, there is sun, you will get a tree in 20 years time.
mm,
It's not luck. It's not happenstance. It's not you know. So for me, that philosophy applies to every organic system, and humans are organic.
mm,
If you apply the same principles that Richard Williams applied, that Judy applied, that Anthony Hamilton applied, um, my belief is you get a three at the end of that. And threes are not they don't sprout in a weekend. They don't sprout in a year or two. You know, if you want to get a proper mahogany tree,
mm,
oak tree, it's a multi-decade long
mm,
effort. So from thinking from that perspective, I know it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, you know.
mm,
Um, you don't expect to see any great results, you know, immediately.
mhm,
It's a long haul thing. So again, you know, for me, it goes back to perspective. I don't know if it's being special parents or just being stubborn parents, you know. But yeah, we just get up and we go at it every day, you know, because buried deep down in our psyche, in our core, is um, if I keep doing this, I mean, again, I think this is one of the things that this really popular book by James Clear, Atomic Habits,
mhm,
is again demonstrating. You know, habits. Once, if you want to achieve anything, you have to habituate it. You have to make it part of your DNA essentially. You know,
mhm,
by going at it over and over and over again. Again, you know, people demonstrate as, you know, you do something and before you're about to get your breakthrough, you give it up because you didn't see results, you know. So from that perspective, if you look at something that if I look in history, if I look at in human history, some people have done this and they got the result at the end. Well, if I do it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I'll get
mm.
results. Yeah. So it's for me, it's not being special. It's maybe it's been stubborn.
Now, I think I go with your mindset about the long term because sometimes life's pressure causes you to expect results the next day, whereas a lot of these things are more of a lifetime commitment than, a one-day event. No, thanks for that. That's quite interesting. So going forward with that, I am looking at the wider family. Three kids, one is sort of leading the way with their interest, their vision. How do we spread this among the rest? The either the opportunity, either the responsibility, either the love and support. Because what if there's another one with similar or better or diverse interests? You know, how do you manage that?
Um, so my mom, my mom was a primary school teacher. And a lot of my formation was around education and how to develop a human intellectually. So when I started raising my kids, I read a lot of pedagogy. I read Maria Montessori. I read Dewey. I read pretty much all the stuff that teachers have to read, and all of that. But one of the things that struck me, and I guess a philosophy I adopted strongly, is all around self-directed learning. And the what it posits is that we all have an innate desire to learn. Nobody taught us to walk. Nobody taught us to crawl. Nobody taught us to speak. These are things that most humans, if are barring learning disabilities, these are things that most humans learn on their own as babies, as toddlers. So there's an innate drive to learn. It's not, we don't have to go to school to learn. And you talk about our three kids. This was demonstrated so vividly in our daughter. At age 6, she taught herself to speak Japanese. Yeah, it blew my mind as well. But because we emphasize self-directed learning, okay, if I apply it back to my son, who is a sim racer, he actually taught himself to race. What we largely do is create the environment and provide the resources. But if you want to achieve something, you're gonna put in the graft yourself. You're gonna learn yourself. So as much as he's the one that I put on LinkedIn all the time, it's largely because as a sports person, he needs that exposure. But from a providing the environment, providing the resources to let each kid blossom, he's not special. Our daughter gets all the resources she needs, all the support she needs. I mean, last in December, I believe she flew with her mom to Copenhagen to do her second Japanese exam. She passed it, so it's not on my LinkedIn page, but it is a thing, so in our family there's enough environmental setting, there's enough resourcing to let each kid pursue their own particular interest. It just happens that in the case of the one that wants to be an athlete, athletes need brand exposure. That's why he features almost exclusively now on my LinkedIn.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I mean, self-learning, self-development. And how do they support each other in all this as siblings?
They are diametrically opposite. So the younger two have sometimes helped with some of the branding efforts for Camto. But at the end of the day, they all have their own interest and they need the time to invest in their interest. So I wouldn't say they invest a lot of time into each other. They get that, for instance, Camto is now part of a racing team, his racing team. So he gets support from his team and the support structure around the team from the community of sim racers. My daughter, who speaks Japanese, I don't know who she speaks Japanese with, but
And you don't speak Japanese either.
not a chance, not a chance. But she's built her own sort of community of people she can speak Japanese with. So Yeah, so they don't actively support. I mean, from an emotional perspective, being in a home, yes, that sort of support is there. But from actively involved in what each person's discipline is, no, they're not that active. They need to spend that time on their own pursuits.
That's great. So in terms of, parents and moving forward and bringing them to a place where they become self sustaining, if I can put it that way, what has been some of the lessons you will reflect on and say, or you will you will pass on to maybe come to say, when I was trying to bring you up, these are the lessons I learned and these are the mistakes I made. Or if you're saying to a younger parent, say, whose son is interested in, or kid, son, daughter is interested in something, these are some of the things I learned. These are some of the mistakes I made, and these are some of the things I will invest in. Can you share a few with us?
I will share one because I think it is the core of everything that I've said, and that you talk about special parents. I was privileged to work in the US back in, I think, 2003. And while I was there, I was sent on a training course run by the Stephen Covey Institute, and it was based on the 7 habits of highly successful people. And the very first principle that book opens with, that program opened with, was start with the end in mind. I've talked about the long-term view that I have. If you take a child, or let me step back. Let's take an athlete, right? I read a stat this week that says most professional athletes in the US go bankrupt after 12 years.
Wow.
That is a damning statistic because these guys retire. An athletic career is not that long. I mean, I know it's been extended now by science and a lot of performance, but let's say that a typical athletic career ends in the mid-30s. We build society for people to retire at 65, and we're even saying that that's too early now. Imagine an athlete that retires at 25, goes broke in 12 years, he's in his what? Late 40s.
Yeah.
What is he going to do for the rest 50 years of his life? So an athlete is a human. I'm not developing my son exclusively as an athlete. I'm developing him as a human. And at the end of the day, a human has to have the capacities to economically support themselves for maybe 70 years, give or take, maybe longer. If that is the end point of a human, that sort of self-independence, what we call, freedom, is economic independence, is being able to sustain yourself. Then I would argue that when you bring a human into the world, you need to start thinking about how they will figure out how to support themselves. So I actually focus a lot on being career oriented. And it's not about going to college. It's not about going to school. It's not about getting a degree. Again, for me, that is a mistake that a lot of people make. They raise their kids to go to university, get a degree, and a lot of emphasis is on that. But life is longer than that. So if you think from that perspective of career readiness, it infuses everything you do with your child, in my view. So even as we're working with Camto on his athletic ambition on esports, beyond all of that is, how do we make sure that this is translate into economic viability at the end? You succeed on the field or track, as they say in sports, but you also must succeed off track. So back to parents as not letting their kids do stuff. In my view, it's because of that short-mindedness that gaming is entertainment. And if you look at the world of sport today, sport is business. It's not just entertainment. It's a commercial. It's a massive commercial engine. So again, this is the value of a parent. I suppose a parent that comes from the corporate world, from the commercial world, is that if you learn to think that sort of long term, if you learn to think, how do we build in commercial engines into this, then that career, the sports career may last 10 years. But it forms the nucleus, the core of a long-term life that has to be independent. It's as simple as that.
That's really interesting, and I'm learning because I can experience this in a different angle with football and all that. So there's a lot of things that are I can recognize in what you're saying. But I want us to sort of till now to the exciting parts. Maybe for me.
Sorry, before you get into the exciting part, let me just give some concrete elements in there. So Kamto on LinkedIn, everybody sees him as a racer. But Kamto is also a coach. He's been a racing coach with a program out of the US called Prodigy Racing League. He is studying digital marketing in college.
I've seen that one.
He manages the social media accounts of his racing team. And this week, literally this week, he got another role as an instructor for a racing tech team. So as much as we don't shout about those on LinkedIn, it's all part of, like I said, making sure that he's also learning the skill sets to build a commercial life alongside his sporting ambitions and long after that.
No, in fact, that's actually led me to what I was going to say, because I was going to mention the exciting programs that you've shared with me, thankfully. We've got the Esports Talent Search Africa. We've got Camto's scholarship champion. We've got Formula V26. We've got Carton Africa. And there's this last one I want to remember. The one that Camto handles the social media handle for.
Mafia Esports.
Yeah, there's another one about Africa. Some is a racing
Formula Africa.
Yeah, Formula Africa, a racing channel.
No, Camto doesn't handle the.
Oh, okay, doesn't handle that one, right? Right. But yeah, but it's part of those exciting parts. Because sadly, personally, from my view, I've seen greater interest in racing activities. Or maybe you have led me to seeing that, because sometimes you don't see everything everywhere as a media organization, but in most recent times, I've seen like 5 different things which are really exciting. So what I'm asking now on these exciting opportunities is, what do you think from your experience? Obviously, you have got better experience with leading Camto, and then now we've seen all this. Is this a rise or an opportunity where we're going to see a lot more people getting opportunity to go into sim racing, and therefore maybe that will positively lead to more interest, more visibility for and I'll go into the African region because I'm fighting for the African space, so visibility for more African interest in esports, sim racing, maybe Formula racing, because obviously South Africa was trying to bid for Formula One coming to South Africa and all that kind of stuff. Is this the opportunity? Is this the path opening for more people?
So there are a number of converging trends here, and a lot of them revolve and stem from one person, Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis is one of those drivers that has shown that he's not just a driver. He has wider interest in fashion, in business. I believe he has a drinks business now. He does other things that are not just in racing. Again, talking about the human as a full dimension. Motorsport particularly, and this has been true of all of sports, and this was, I mean, this is true. When I told Kamto he needs to be posting on social media, and he looked at me like, how does that help me with my racing? Like, sports people are so deep into performance that there's this thing about the British Olympics rowing team that was said, if it doesn't help move the boat faster, just strip it out. So they're just focused on performance.
Wow.
That they really don't care about all of these razzmatazz that we call marketing and all of that. But he's finally got there, and he's got that the reality is, you need money to do performance, and you get money by bringing people in to to support you and all of that. So in Formula One had the same view, in my view. It was kneecapping its potential when it was just focused on performance and who came first and all of that. But the new owners and the Netflix series Drive to Survive has blown it up, not just as a sport, but as a cultural phenomenon. So it's now having a lot of confluence with entertainment, music, film, and all of that. So that's driving a lot. That's bringing a lot of people into motorsports. It's just bringing more and more people into motorsports. But if you bring it back to Lewis, an embodiment of that convergence of all of this, music, fashion, culture in motorsports. If you bring it to the other side of being the only black guy in Formula One, and for years has been saying Formula One needs to come to Africa, he is nearing the end of his racing career. That's for sure. And he is becoming very strident that there has to be a Formula One in Africa. He wants to race on the continent before he retires. This, I believe, is his legacy project. So given what he is to the sport, in my view, he's the greatest of all time. I know not everybody shares that, but whatever your view is, nobody can discount what that guy has done for the sport. And by bringing his force to the question of Formula One coming to Africa, I believe he's dragging a lot of attention, a lot of capital to actualize that in Africa. And that is definitely now, in my view, feeding into that whole narrative. And, for me, if you take that sort of off of Formula One to the broader motorsport, sim racing, the other thing that sim racing, in my view, is doing is, again, when I talk about motorsports, people say, well, that's a rich sport, that's a privileged sport. It is an expensive sport. Yes, it's a high barrier sport, no questions asked. But sim racing makes it possible to bring people in at almost every socioeconomic level. The first sim racing kit Kamto had, I think, was less than 500 euros. It's still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking about Africa here. 500 euros is still a lot of money. No doubt about that. But for a sport that possibly you need at least, I don't know, 40, 50,000 pounds a year to execute, even at karting level,
it is.
Then 500 is nothing. So, but I think that attention ultimately will bring in corporate partners, corporate sponsors. That will ultimately develop pathways and pipelines for talent. That, you talked about the esports talent search. That would, I mean, this has happened in many ways. I mean, in fashion, there was Face of Africa that's brought talent from that domain. Again, I don't know what everyone's view on Big Brother Africa is, but it does surface talent.
Yeah.
We would have the same in motorsports, a means to surface and discover talent. And that will feed into the cultural storytelling that we in Africa are good at.
No, that's excellent, and thank you for your time. I'm just conscious that Teams is giving us 1 hour 10 minutes, and I want to end properly so that I can edit this very well. So I really appreciate your time. It's quite late on the night, and you have shared a lot of knowledge with us. That's not the end of it because we're going to write about you as well. We're going to be following Capital's story. I know I'm not at Ireland this on the 18th, but I will definitely be following that story up to get some insight into that story. And I just want to appreciate you a lot as a parent, in the information you share on LinkedIn, especially because that's helped me come to you for this topic. We're going to write a lot more about how African parents can support their kids, and hopefully we can get more insight from you. So really appreciate your time and all the best. Regards to come to and the crew.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Pleasure talking with you as always. And yeah, hope this gives some value to the listeners.
No, thank you.